Hey, we got a couple of easy horsepower how-tos that'll turn this Indian into a fearless street warrior. Today on Horsepower TV, it's a two-wheel horsepower experience you don't want to miss when we bolt a nitrous kit to an Indian motorcycle and make some unbelievable horsepower at the rear wheel. We'll take you to the home of Boss Hoss, the biggest, baddest, fastest street bike in the world.
I couldn't imagine riding anything else. Now, after riding these, it's just too much fun.
So hang on for Horsepower TV. Welcome to Horsepower TV, where today we've turned the shop into hog heaven with an assortment of show bikes and big V-twin road bikes.
Now, mention the word V-twin and most people naturally think of Harley. But there's an old name making a new comeback these days, the Indian. Now, after more than 40 years in the happy hunting ground, hey, the company's on its way back with a couple of new models. This one's called the Scout, and it's a stripped-down, souped-up V-twin thumper that's small on size but big on performance. Now, it uses an 88 cubic inch S&S engine that's rated at 75 horsepower, and hey, if you like a bike that handles, hauls, and brakes with the best of them, then you might want to scout out one of these for yourself.
The Chief is the other half of the war party. It's a fully dressed road bike, so it's bigger, heavier, and more comfortable on longer trips. Now, it too has the S&S 88 cube engine.
Well, I guess since it too makes 75 horsepower, just like the last one, we can call it an honest engine?
Okay, why don't you hit the trail there, Forky Tongue? Since it's the heavier of the two bikes, well, it could benefit the most from extra horsepower, most of which we'll get from the nitrous kit we're going to bolt on later. But first, we got a couple of tricks for you that'll add 15 horses and won't cost a dime. All right, to validate our improvements, we're using this DynoJet motorcycle dyno that measures rear-wheel horsepower pretty much like our in-ground unit. That inertia drum there is hooked to sensors that transmits rate of acceleration to our computer, which of course translates that into horsepower. Of course, as always, we need to get a good baseline, so we get busy.
Well, how'd we do?
Well, a little over 62 horsepower. Good place to start.
You know, bikes are just like cars. If you open up the respiratory tract, well, they're going to run just a little bit better. Now, to give the old Indian here a little more breathing room, what we're going to do is remove a restrictor plate from the carburetor. And to do that, we first have to remove the air cleaner cover, then the air filter assembly, followed by the 3 bolts that hold the base plate of the air cleaner to the carburetor. And finally, the 2 bolts that attach the base to the head. But now the restrictor is exposed and can be removed from the back of the plate. Of course, we're going to be pulling air a lot more efficiently through the carburetor now, so we need to rejet. Now, to do that, you need to remove the float bowl first. And, well, we're going to go ahead and reduce the sizes of our jet by 2 steps on the idle and 1 step on the main jet. Now, once the carb is all back together, you can reinstall the air cleaner by reversing all those steps.
Opening up the Indian's exhaust will help it breathe better too. SuperTrap makes this system for the Chief, and it's tunable by adding or removing baffle disc. Now, to get to them, we first have to remove a screw here that holds the fishtail tip in place. Then remove the fishtail tip. There we go. And the next screw that holds the baffle in place. Then we can remove the baffle assembly. Oh, by the way, here are those discs I was talking about. The more of these you add, the freer the flow and, of course, the louder the exhaust. Now, the sound of a good, healthy engine never bothered us, so we're going for the gusto. Going to remove this baffle entirely for maximum performance. Well, that was pretty easy. Now we just reinstall this fishtail tip, fire it up, and see how much free horsepower we've got. right.
What's a good word?
Well, how about 80 horsepower? Now, with a baseline of 62, we just picked up 18 free ponies on that ride.
Hey, that's not bad, but I tell you what, I can't wait to get the old Chief here on the bottle, and hey, we're going to do that right after the break, so stay with us.
And welcome back to the shop and more of our horsepower buildup on this Indian Chief. Well, so far today we made 18 extra horses just by opening up the intake and exhaust. Now it's time to put the old Chief on the bottle, and we ain't talking firewater.
That's right. What we are talking about is Edelbrock's new Nitrous kit for V-twin applications. Not only do they have them for the Indian over there, but hey, they also have them for Harleys and many aftermarket bikes as well. Now here's what you get in the kit. First, a nitrous bottle that attaches to the down tubes with a pair of billet brackets. Then a spray bar plate that's configured for most aftermarket carburetors.
Now here's the heart of the system. This aluminum plate mounts the solenoids, the fuel pump, and the electronics. Now for a clean appearance, this chrome cover hides everything and also mounts the arming switch. The electronics are set at the factory to kick the nitrous in at 4,500 RPM. Now this whole assembly mounts under the gas tank where the horn normally sits. Therefore, your horn button becomes the activation switch.
Hey, that's pretty sneaky. I've gotten started over here already by turning off the fuel and removing the air cleaner covers so I can unbolt the carb and install that spray plate. But before you do, make sure that you check the spray bars to ensure that the fuel and nitrous are shooting into the engine. Of course, the spray plate itself installs between the carb and the intake manifold. We can move on now to the fuel and nitrous lines that'll feed the spray plate. Of course, they're color-coded, red for fuel and blue for nitrous. The kit is tunable and comes with several different sized jets. Select the one you want for the horsepower level you're after and install it in the plate before connecting the line. To be on the safe side, you want to start with the smaller jets first and gradually work your way up.
After that, we can go ahead and mount the bottle by clamping it to this down tube here. Now, we need to remove the horn so we can make way for that control plate, which, by the way, is available for either rigid or rubber mount engines. Now, to do that, we remove 3 bolts holding the upper engine mount. Okay, here's what that mount looks like off the bike. We're going to attach our control plate to it using these 3 studs here. Now, everything can go back on the bike as an assembly. Now, before we can install this control plate, we need to attach these lines connecting the spray plate to our solenoids. That is, after we splice into the existing fuel line between the tank and our fuel pump. Now, I've already gone ahead and done that with this T-fitting. The wiring is the final step, and it's pretty basic with 4 connections. This black lead here goes to the coil. It tells the system when the engine's at 4,500 RPM. This red lead comes from a switch 12-volt source, and it connects to the center terminal on the arming switch. This red lead from our electronics connects to the top terminal on that arming switch. Oh, this little stripe lead here, well, that connects to the horn. Oh, I can't forget about this. This braided line, well, that's our nitrous feed, and of course, it screws right into the bottle.
Well, that takes care of the installation. Now, let me show you how everything works. After you open the valve down here on the bottle, you arm the system with this rocker switch on the cover here. Then just hold in on the horn button and hold on, because this thing's going to kick in by itself at 4,500 RPM.
Well, that sounds pretty simple, but let's see how it all works on the dyno jet.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Man, this thing's really on the warpath now. What are the numbers?
108 horsepower.
Woo!
Man, that thing really kicks in at 4,500 RPM, and I guess we made another 28 horsepower. Not bad for an hour's work.
Not bad at all. And you know, with a little more tuning, hey, we're liable to find even more horsepower.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, you'll find more horsepower TV after this break. Stay with us. Is there such a thing as too much horsepower on two wheels? Not if you're a Boss Hoss fan. Hop on for the ultimate thrill ride next on Horsepower.
And now, a horsepower happening, celebrating the people, places, and events of the high-performance lifestyle.
There's nothing unusual about seeing a 350 Chevy on the road these days. They're one of the most popular platforms out there. That is, unless you put it between the frame rails of a touring bike. Welcome to the home of Boss Hoss. Imagine 355 horsepower on just 1,100 pounds of motorcycle. Or how about this? 0 to 50 in just 2 seconds. If power is your passion, then riding one of these Boss Hoss bikes has to be the ultimate two-wheel power trip.
Let's say you got a Nova that weighs 3,600 pounds and you drop an engine in it that has 1,500 horsepower. You know, that's what it's like, only it's controllable. But there's a few seconds there of the acceleration. It's just unbelievable.
It's the fastest, most powerful bike in the world, and not for those with faint hearts or thin wallets, with a price tag of $32,000 for the basic ride.
We got a lot of people that would give anything to have them, but our typical customer is normally guys 40 and up, and they have disposable income. They ride motorcycles. They've had a number of motorcycles, and they see one and they think, well, they might like to have one, but once they ride one, they're hooked.
The Boss Hoss creator is Monty Warren, who grew up on a farm in South Dakota with an early love for horsepower and a dream of building a bike with lots of it. He built his first Boss Hoss by hand in the late 80s and was soon selling them as fast as he could make them here in his Dyersburg, Tennessee shop. Of course, they began life here in the frame room.
They're 4130 chrome moly aircraft tubing, chrome millennium. And we picked the very best quality tubing, you know, like sprint cars are made out of. And they have to be perfectly true. Once it pulls out of the jig, the fixture, believe it or not, they cut them in half. We have to have a way to install the engine and the transmission, so we put a machine splice right in the very center of the frame, and that enables us to unbolt it, pull it apart, and then put the engine in and then put the two halves around it.
It took a lot of other tricks to make the Boss Hoss a smooth-riding yet powerful bike, like developing a transmission that would transfer all that torque and power.
I had to change the direction of drive off the flywheel, of course, and have it controllable. It's surprisingly balanced real well, and the bikes do handle real well. But there is a lot of things that we ran into designing it down the road to get them up to the standards, the DOT standards that we had to address.
As you can see, every bike is hand-assembled in the shop, and everything goes on here from the Edelbrock carburetor to the drive belts. Well, finally, here they are, ready for shipment to the dealers where they get a paint job and, of course, a brand new owner. By the way, if that 355 horses is not quite enough power, you can also get one with, believe it or not, a Chevy 502, the baddest boss of them all.
Just the sound of it alone is unbelievable. And motorcycle, I mean, but we've had a number of guys that own these bikes that have also bought 502s. It's their second bike. I mean, it's their hot rod.
For people who like a hot rod bike with 3 wheels, there's also a new Boss Hoss trike in production. But meanwhile, with thousands already on the road, the little shop in Tennessee stays busy meeting the demands of horsepower-loving riders all over the world. And that's great news for the founder, whose childhood dreams have become a powerful reality.
I couldn't imagine riding anything else. Now, I mean, after riding these, it's just too much fun.
Should you power your motorcycle with a belt or a chain? Decide for yourself on a special two-wheel quick tech next.
Today on Quick Tech, we're going to take a look at a couple of different ways to transfer power from your motorcycle's engine to the rear wheel. Now, in years past, the chain was a pretty standard device, but recently, the belt drive has become a pretty popular option. Of course, that's not to say that chains don't have their good points too. They can handle more power and torque, plus they're less expensive, and if you break one on the side of the road, you can fix them easily with this chain link repair kit. Now, that's something that's impossible to do if you're running a belt. Now, the belt does offer reduced harmonics and a smoother transfer of power. Plus, you don't have to lube it and put up with all that oil slinging everywhere. The belt also won't stretch once it's taken a set, so you're not going to continually adjust it to take the slack out like you would with a chain. When it comes to efficiency, the chain creates more friction and takes more power to turn. And because of that, it wears the parts faster and requires more frequent replacement. Now, with the proper maintenance, you're going to get about 5,000 miles out of a regular chain, and it's going to cost you about 50 bucks. An O-ring chain, on the other hand, is going to give you 8,000 to 10,000 miles of service, and it'll cost you 100 bucks. On the other hand, a belt is going to cost you about 175 bucks, but it weighs less and it takes less power to turn. The best part, though, is it's going to last you about 50,000 miles. Both the belt and the chain offer the ability to change the final drive ratio fairly easily by swapping out either the pulleys or the sprockets. Now, if you're looking for a little more top end, well, you want to go with a bigger cog up front and a smaller one in the rear. Of course, if you're looking for more bottom end, it's just the opposite. Use a smaller cog up front and a bigger one out back.
Hey, Chuck, all that makes sense, and obviously the chain and belt both have things going for them, but how do you choose the right one for your application?
Well, you know, there's no hard and fast rule, but if you're riding a high horsepower scoot and you ride it pretty aggressively, well, you're probably better off hanging a chain on it. On the other hand, if you're riding a big heavy cruiser and spend most of your time on the highway, well, you're probably better off with a belt.
All right, well, it's time for us to buckle down and take a little break, but we'll be back with hot parts, so stay with us.
Horsepower TV's Hot Parts, a close-up look at the latest in high-performance hardware.
Since we're in a motorcycle mode today, here's a little heads up for you Evo Big Twin owners. These maximum velocity billet heads from CompCams boat right up to your 80-inch engine and can handle up to a 3 13/16 bore. They come from the factory with stainless steel valves, ductile iron seats, and they're super springs with 10-degree locks and chrome moly retainers. Now, a James gasket set's also included, and with flat top pistons, you get about a 10-to-1 squeeze factor after you squeeze your wallet for a little less than $1,000.
Hey, with more and more fuel-injected motorcycles these days, owners need a way to tune their electronics for maximum performance. Now, this new Power Commander fuel injection kit from Dyno also includes a computer connection cable and the software you need to reconfigure your ignition and fuel curves for maximum performance with the use of a laptop. Now, this one plugs into a Harley, but they've also got them for most popular import bikes as well. Of course, you're going to have to export about $300 from your budget to get one.
Well, here's an American-made way to help you plan all that new power. It's Mickey Thompson's Drag ET Slick with a lightweight design to help reduce rotating mass, and it comes in a variety of compounds to match track conditions. Now, they've got them to fit 15, 17, and 18-inch rims with tread widths that range from 5 1/4 to 14 inches. So, if you want to lower your ETs, you'll have to come up with 140 bucks and more for the bigger sizes.
Hey, now that's pretty slick, and so's next week's show. Here's a look at it.
We'll go inside our Project Pro Touring Pony with new door panels, carpet, cool new gauge cluster, and even a set of seats. We'll show you how to reinforce your chassis without any welding, plus give you a lift by meeting the man behind this cool bus.
And remember, high performance fun is what this show's all about.
Well, you said earlier there was more power left in old Chief over there. What do you think?
Well, I think we need to pull a little jet out of it.
Okay.
You know, I noticed that it was rolling some black smoke out.
Yeah,
and
I
we
saw that too.
kicked in the nitrous. So let's pull some jet out. I think there's another 5, maybe 10 horsepower in it.
For information about the products used in today's show and more, check us out online at horsepowertv.com. Horsepower TV is an RTM production.